Good morning, and you're very welcome to Bealtaine Cottage. And I don't know why I keep looking down at this because I'm not seeing anything, so I need to be looking in there. Anyway, good morning. Beautiful lunar day. So before I venture out, I've got my coffee here. Though it's a mite cold at the moment. I want to just reinforce the whole celebration of Lunasa. Because there are a lot of people who are saying, oh, it does feel like autumn and this is still summer and what's happening and the weather systems have changed and oh, whoa. And I keep saying each year, each Celtic celebration, that the Celtic celebrations are far more in line with the actual weather systems. Here in the west of Ireland, anyway, I can testify to that, than the calendar or what they say on the weather forecast, oh, this is summer now, this is forgetting, that the 21st of June is midsummer and the date of midwinter and how you can't have something midway between both if it's at the beginning of something, as they keep telling us. But anyway, it's all confusion. It's all utter confusion. Which I'm not subscribing to. I'm just going to keep refusing to subscribe to this stupidity and madness and herding, The powers that be keep wanting to herd us to think this, herd us to think that, herd us to do this or that. No, I reject it all. I reject it all. And there is a lot of wisdom in that rejection. So I'm going to take you up to the stone circle because over recent days I've been doing a bit of a tidy up. My tidy up continues. I've got some ideas for this area that I'm pointing the camera at the moment. All will be revealed. What I wanted to do is actually make a bit more space out here, simply because everything's become so huge. This vastness, this abundance, which is beautiful, but I need a little bit more space. So that's a project now that I'm conjuring up in my magical head as I go. Okay, to the stone circle. Come with me. I'm loving all these mushrooms that are springing up everywhere at the moment. Yes, another sign of Lunasa. And they're everywhere, especially alongside the paths. So I'll just head up. There's my little hedge. Someone remarked on this little hedge a few days ago, and I can't remember what media platform it was on, but they said, I remember, it was Lucas. Yeah, I think it was Lucas. Lucas said, I remember when you put that little hedge in, just as little slips, and you stuck them straight into the earth. Indeed I did. Indeed I did. And you see how everything just grows and grows, and the abundance keeps multiplying. This wonderful multiplication of life. Someone else said on a comment the other day, I think it was on the podcast that I put up on my website about the end of empire, which, by the way, is podcast number 1. I'm going to be doing a lot more of them because there are so many different elements to cover in this topic. But they mentioned the population of Mother Earth, and how Mother Earth couldn't cope with that population. Well, I totally disagree. I mean, I totally utterly disagree. And I'll tell you for why. Again, it's just a practical reason, because not having television and living quite remotely and living on my own, I've got lots of time to think and decipher things and analyse things. If the population in the Western world, in the so-called developed world, I call it totally undeveloped, but in the so-called developed world, ate according to what their body needs. First of all, the rampaging disease of obesity, which, by the way, strikes us all. I am no exception to that, because living in the Western world with all this incredibly processed but very delectable, to one's eye anyway, food, yes, there is a propensity to overeat, and in some cases overeat to an incredible level. So it's not the population, it's the way the food is distributed, which has always been very unfairly. Anyway, that's a little bit of housekeeping done there, because I like to respond to comments now and again. Here's a stone circle. Yeah. And as you can see, I've done a major pruning on my little red oak. Now, it is totally justified, because I'm already seeing these little shoots. Can you see the little? Just see if I can get closer. Can you see the little red shoots coming out there? So, if you have the confidence and the will to shape a tree whilst it's young, it does allow it to grow in a much healthier fashion, in that it can support itself. I mean, physically support itself against the storms and the winds. So I've crowned it a little bit, just a little bit. I've crowned it to kind of waist high. So this would be waist high or a little bit above, maybe breast high. And then by taking the leader off, because this long piece, which was well over 5 or 6 feet, is actually the leader. By taking that off, it gives it more shape. And so nature has had its way. And the wasp nest is now gone. And as I said before, I did actually see what looked like honeycomb in there. So whatever little creature, be it a stoat or a mink or something else, has gone in after some sweetness. There's not a sign of a wasp anywhere. Isn't that amazing? And down there on the ground is what's left of all that beautiful nest building that the wasps did. It's actually beautiful. Look at that, layers and layers. And people say, oh, get rid of that wasp's nest. Wasps are terrible, they're terrible, they don't do any good, they're just harmful. I suppose there are always people who speak out of their backsides. Everything is here for a reason. Once you grasp that and you understand that sometimes you don't understand, then you begin to live in harmony with this amazing, great, magnificent entity, the great Mother Earth. So this area is now clear, and I'm going to get a little table and 2 chairs. I'll have a look at the bid fair tomorrow. There might be something there. And you can see what I've done with one of the mirrors that was hanging up on the veranda of the lodge. I like the idea of having little bits and pieces that kind of spill over from the cottage around the outside of the cottage. Makes it a bit quirky, but also it's just something to do with bits and bobs. So this area has been cleared up. I'm going to tackle the little gable garden over here because it needs a little bit of thinning out, a little bit of cutting back. And I still have that window there on my list of things to do. But I was quite pleased that we got that trailer moved because the trailer belongs to my son, who needs it because he's come back from Canada and he's doing up an old cottage up on the mountain, up in Kilronan Mountain. So the trailer is now parked over on the far side over here, and made a little bit of room for it. So this has now opened up the space for my little gable garden, because one of the things that gives me pleasure is when I'm driving up the driveway here and I come out onto this area where I'm going to park, I like to see this. This is such a little calm oasis. Now there are lots of them through the woodland gardens because of course that's what trees do. Trees allow you to have a calm oasis. And the way the trees are beginning to just come out here like a little canopy, and you know, there's the Bealtaine there and the fuchsia, which I'm trying to train as a little tree. And the plants along here. It instills calm in the mind, just coming home to this. There's been a plethora of butterflies over recent days. And of course, the sweetness, the sort of honeyed sweetness in these beautiful Bealtaine flowers draws them. And the Bealtaine is just blossoming everywhere. I've scattered some bread here for the birds. It's one of those beautiful days where summer lingers, where this slow crossover, this passing can be so sweet. There's just a wisp of lunacy today, but it's there. And it's coming from the earth up. Because of course the earth holds everything. It holds all life, all changes, all wisdom. So peaceful. Even the birds are relatively quiet. And this deepness of leaf mulch and wood just keeps growing, keeps developing, keeps nurturing. And I was reading online recently about this shocking revelation. Well, I suppose it's a revelation to most people, but not to me, because I'm an Earth Watcher. I always have been an Earth Watcher. This revelation that we have very little topsoil left. And then I look at this earth, this 3 acres of wonder, where earth has been systematically, year on year, created by the sheer force and magnificence of the earth herself. Because you see, when I say that she's incredibly abundant, yes, she is incredibly abundant. Look, there's looks like a little goddess down there in that piece of wood. Just as I was talking about this. No, there's no surprise. Her abundance creates above the earth and so below. Birds are so quiet. But they've raised their young. They're having a rest. I think the next time when we really hear the bird song down here will be as we move into the deep Lunasa and the early Samhain, the early dark, the early winter. And they sing out quite loud then. I know I started calling these little diaries the diaries of everyday life here at Bealtaine Cottage, the cottage diaries, but I have to be honest and say it's less about the cottage and more about the woodland that surrounds it. So I think the Woodland Cottage diaries seems more apt. It's so still, the air is so still. I can hear my neighbours talking down along the road. It's amazing how the sounds of life travels, especially laughter. When people are laughing and talking together. Look at this little oak tree. Some beautiful growth spurts there, look at that. Beautiful. This little tree has actually doubled in size. It's now head height. That's in less than a year. When I planted it, can you see? There's where it was. See that brown wood? Everything above the brown wood, look, is this year's growth. So it's now above my head. Just in about 8 months. Incredible. So this was Bealtaine Cottage at the very beginning in 2004. This was the lane leading up to the cottage, as you can see. And this was the view from the front door. Well, it's a different view now.